Welcome to Exercise 3.1, Cascading Style Sheets. This exercise follows after Exercise 2.1, where you created a simple-looking web page, as you can see here on the left-hand side of my screen. This web page was really designed just to teach you some basic HTML. While it did have a picture and a few links, it really wasn't a very visually appealing website. What we're going to do in this exercise is we're going to use style sheets or styles to add some formatting and some visual appeal to this website. Let's get started. We need some files to begin this exercise. Your professor should have provided them on Blackboard for you to access and download. There is the instruction file, which you can see on the right-hand side of my screen. That's this Introduction to CSS PDF or docx file. There is also the Exercise 3.1 startingfiles.zip file. This contains the HTML files that we created in our last exercise. We'll be using the same website to modify for our styles exercise. Before I move on to the next step, I want to just go over what a zip file is. A zip file is like an envelope that contains a bunch of different pieces of paper. In this case, it's an envelope that contains a number of different files. You cannot work with these files until you take them out of the wrapper or take them out of the envelope. If you're not sure how zip files work already, I'm going to demonstrate in a minute, but your professor may have shared with you this link, how to use zip files, which goes to a YouTube video by a gentleman called Gentleman Crafter UK. So if you can't find a link, you can look up Gentleman Crafter UK on YouTube and find his video on how to unzip a compressed file folder. It's a very short, very simple demonstration on how to properly use zip files. Let's go back to the zip file. You'll notice that on my computer it says .zip on the end. You may not notice this on your computer, you may not see this on a Mac, but you should see an icon that has a little bit of a zipper on it. The zipper indicates that this is zipped up or compressed. We need to extract the information from it before we can use it. On a Windows computer, the simplest way to do that is to right-click on the file and choose Extract All from the drop-down menu. When you choose this, a box that looks like this will pop up. Now on your computer, this checkbox may have a check mark in it. I'm going to suggest you remove it and then go ahead and click on Extract. This will extract the files to the same location that the original zip file is in. So I'll choose Extract, and now what you can see is everything has been extracted. I still have the zip file as indicated by the zipper, but I also have this plain folder icon, which is the actual contents of the folder or of the zip file extracted. I strongly suggest at this point that you go ahead and delete the zip file so that you don't get confused by it later on. Inside the starting files folder, you'll find Exercise 3.1, and in here you'll find two web pages, the images folder that has the rocket.gif that we used in the previous exercise, and you'll also find this style2.css sheet. Now that the folder has had the contents extracted, if you navigate to the Exercise 3.1 folder inside the main folder, you'll find the index.html file. I'm going to double click on that and it will open the web page from Exercise 2.1. We are going to be modifying this web page using the instructions found in the exercise directions. In order to do that, we need to open this web page, if you recall, in a text editor program. Now on the Windows computer, we're going to use Notepad. On a Mac, you can use TextEdit. There are a couple of different ways to open it. On a Windows computer, you can right-click, you can choose Open With, and you can select Notepad if it's available in the list of programs. Another way of doing it is simply running Notepad. I have Notepad open here, and choosing File, Open, and then finding your folder, going into your folder, and when you see the images folder, you've gone far enough, but you can't see your HTML files. If you recall from the first exercise, that's because Notepad by default is looking for text documents. You need to change this to all files, and then you will see your index and your page2.html files. I'm going to choose my index file, click on Open, and there is the HTML code we created in the previous exercise. We can now proceed to go through the instructions and modify the document by adding styles. I've rearranged my screen. I still have the instructions open on the right-hand side, but I have the HTML document open in Notepad here. I have the web page behind, so I can quickly click on it to view it and refresh as I make changes. I've also got my File Explorer down in this corner, just in case I want to take a look at or open other files. Now, it's important to open the instructions in Adobe Acrobat Reader. You don't want to open it in a web browser because when you copy the copy the code from inside the document and paste it into your straight text Notepad document, the web browser may add additional characters which will cause problems. It may cause things not to load properly or links not to work. So open it in Adobe Acrobat. Acrobat Reader is free to download. You can use it on a Mac or a PC. It may already be on your computer. Use that to open the source document. We're going to begin to follow the instructions now. If you recall from the LinkedIn Learning Collection that you were asked to review, there are 3 different places that you might put style instructions into a document. The first is to actually have it in an external sheet. If you take a look down here, there's an example of an external style sheet right here, this style2.css. Notice it has a little page with a gear icon on a Windows computer. That is an external style sheet, and an external style sheet will get linked into the HTML. We'll do that in a little bit. Another thing that we can do to put styles into a web page is to use internal styles, where we actually take style information. For example, here is some style information, which I'm going to copy. And then in the head of my document, I will make a little bit of space under the title, and I will paste that in. This is an internal style sheet. You can see that there's a style container, which holds the actual style information. Inside that container is the style definition. In this case, there's only the body tag defined. So there's the selector. Here are the squiggly brackets, which enclose the different variable pairs. And then here are all of the configuration for this particular element. In this case, it's defining the font, the size of the font, the color of the font, the background color of the web page, the margin around the web page, and some padding information. So this is an example of an internal style sheet. The third place you might have styles would be down in the HTML code. Styles could be defined in line with the HTML code. The advantages, obviously, of an external style sheet are that they can apply to multiple web pages. One style sheet can apply to multiple web pages. If you want to make a change, you change it in that one document, and the next time the pages are loaded, they will all reflect that change. Internal style sheets, like we have here, since they're in each individual document, take a little bit more work to manage. If you have 100 web pages with internal style sheets and you want to update them, you have to update 100 web pages. And of course, the most complex ones to deal with are the ones that are actually located down inside the code. If you need to make changes to those, not only do you need to open each web page that contains it, but you need to find that definition within the code and then modify it there. The first part of the exercise has us put the style sheet into the document, and I've done that. I copied and pasted. I'm going to save my web page, and now we'll go back to the original, and you'll notice that when I reload, the definitions have been applied. So you can see that the text is Arial, it is red, that's the color it's been defined here. It's very small, 9 point, and the background is this ugly color, which is represented by this hexadecimal indicator here. There's an example of an internal style sheet. Next, let's move on and take a look at external style sheets. The instructions for creating an external style sheet can be found on the bottom of page 1. And here it says we're going to create an external style sheet. To begin with, we need a blank Notepad document. So again, I've opened Notepad a second time, and this time we're going to save this document. So we'll choose File, Save As. And in the same folder as our web pages, we will change the type to All Files. And the instructions ask us to name this one style.css. And click on Save. So you'll notice now it's called style.css. the computer will recognize this as a style sheet. The next portion of the instructions ask you to copy the information from inside the style container in the web page that we modified earlier. Copy this information and paste it into our new document. And then we can choose File and Save again. We now have the beginnings of a style sheet. Now that we've created our style.css document, it has been saved in the same folder as our web page and the original style sheet that you downloaded with the exercise. At the top of page 2 of the document, it asks you to go ahead and make some changes to this style sheet so that it will differ from the one that we had on the internal style sheet. So we'll change it to 14 point, green for the color, and we'll put in FFFCCC, and we'll leave everything else alone. Once we've done this, we can save the style sheet. So we've modified our style sheet with a different type size, a different color of typeface, it's red in the original, and a different background color. I can't tell you what this is going to become, but it certainly won't be this ugly green color that we have now. Now that this has been modified and saved, you'll notice that our document still looks the same. That's because it's still using the style sheet inside the document. So let's go ahead, following the instructions here, and let's remove the internal style sheet from the document. Now that it's gone, if I save my document again and reload my web page, I'm right back to my unformatted document with no style. We need to connect the external style sheet to this document. And we do that using a link tag. So here in our instructions, you can copy this link tag and you can place it in the location that the internal style used to be in the head of the document. A link tag, you'll notice, does not have a closing tag. What it does is it connects one document to another. So link can be used for a lot of things, but in this case, we're linking in a style sheet, and the name of that style sheet is style.css. And remember, we made some minor changes to the style sheet. So when we go ahead and save this document, if everything works properly and all the files are in the right locations, our web page should look different than it did before. And sure enough, now we have green text on this yellowish background. Now that we've connected our HTML to our style sheet, let's go ahead and add additional elements to our style sheet. So here's our style sheet here. Remember, it was connected over here using the link, and this is the way it looks right now. The only element we have in it is the body element. One thing I just want to point out, if you're ever looking at code, what you should see in the code is a lot of documentation that helps the developer understand what the code does. This is usually done in the form of comments. In a style sheet, a comment looks like this. You can see the characters that are used to indicate the beginning and end of a comment. I'll just go down and paste that in underneath the body tag. The comment simply provides direction. For example, the information below is used to format such and such a characteristics on this website or on the web page. Let's continue to add some elements. Further down on page 2, you'll notice there is a P or paragraph element. I'm going to copy that. I will drop below my comment and I will paste that in. Notice the paragraph element, the squiggly brackets which contain the parameters, and here is a parameter with a value. So this one is line height, and it says 21 point. Take a look at the original document here. I'm going to save this style sheet, so watch the original document. Let's go ahead and reload. Notice we have a little bit more space. It's not as dense. We've spaced the lines out a little bit. Carrying on, we have some code for heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. So I will copy this code. And again, underneath my P tag in my style sheet, I will paste this code in. We now have a definition for a heading 1, which you know is this heading up here. For the heading 2, which is this heading here, and a heading 3, which is this heading here. I'm not going to go over what all the details are, but there are definitely a lot of them defined, in particular for heading number 1. I'm going to save my style sheet, go back to my HTML document, and when I reload it this time, I get a completely different look for the headings. as well as the elements that were defined previously. Let's carry on and add a little bit more information. There's an image tag, has a definition. So I'm going to copy this code back into my document again, and I will paste it in. Let me move this up a little bit where it's more in the center of the screen for you to see it. Paste in the image code. Once again, save my document, go back here, reload. Notice there is now sort of a ant or a little dashed gray border around my image. I'm not saying the changes I'm making are any good. It's still a pretty ugly looking page, but at least it's showing you that things absolutely change when you start putting styles into your document. Let's finish up by adding the last few elements from the exercise into our style sheet. You'll notice in this group of elements we have an A tag for links, we have a strong tag for bold, and we have a list tag for lists. So I'll copy those and I will paste them into my style sheet, save the style sheet, go back, and there's the link here, by the way. Here's a couple more links down here, and here is our list. So let's take a look and see what happens when we change this. So notice the list color has changed. It's now in italics. The underline has disappeared from our links. And the strong is all caps. So notice it's converted it all to uppercase without us having to go and do that manually. So there's the last group of our styles. Let's next move on, and let's just change our style sheet to the other one that was provided. So we have a sheet that looks like this with all of the styles that we've just added in the style.css document. But what we're going to do now, if you recall, we had a style 2 document here. Let's go back to our HTML. Let's add the number 2 to the end of this link. Save this, and let's watch what happens when we reload the web page when it's now connected to that style sheet. Notice it completely changes the entire look and feel of the document. I can, of course, go back, change my HTML back to style, click on File, Save, and reload again, and it goes back to the one that we built. You can see from this exercise that styles make a huge difference in the layout and formatting of your page. Instead of a very boring, ugly-looking, plain HTML page, styles are used to format the elements. But we did not have to go in and modify our HTML in order to have multiple different looks and feel for our web page. That's the end of this exercise.